Yo, what up? It's Lit Book Reviews. We're doing another one. This is the podcast where we talk about books, and we have a guest with us. So, hey, it's me. I am Owen Wilson. With me is my co-host, as always, Ben Affleck, and we have a guest today, none other than Bruce Willis. So, thank you so much for tuning in for another episode. It's me, Jesse, guy Andrew here, and our guest, Grayson. Grayson, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us your favorite color and your least favorite place to go.
Oh, man, favorite color is definitely chartreuse. Least favorite place to go? Work.
That's
facts.
That's a based answer. Accurate. And what do you do for work? Nice segue.
No, I love my job. I actually work in film. I'm a camera assistant. So,
sick.
Yeah.
That's pretty dope.
What I tell people is the most public form of my job is if you've ever seen any like behind the scenes stuff, I'm the guy that's clapping the board right before like a shot starts. So
you're the clapper, huh?
I'm the clapper guy. Yeah.
Let's go. Let's go. Well, we've met once in person. You've met Andrew just now over a video chat. Luckily, you and I haven't seen each other since the first time we met. Otherwise, it would turn into a fist fight to the death. So we're just gonna stick with the Zoom calls and such.
I still don't think we've met, but I legitimately do not remember that day at all.
We were at a brewery, so I mean, you can be forgiven if you don't remember.
I remember the situation, but I don't remember you. So I don't know what that says about you or me.
I don't know why you have to keep reminding me that you don't remember, but it hurts more and more every time.
It's like, I remember you really well.
Yeah, I remember every word we said to each other. What's going on here? Oh man, that's funny. But anyway, so let's get into it. We're going to talk about Hero of Ages today. Book 3, Mistborn Era 1, Brandon Sanderson. If you've been watching, which you probably haven't, we did the first and second book already. And now we're going to do the third one. And we brought in Grayson because would you say this is your favorite book or like top 5? Like, where would you put Hero of Ages?
In books or just like Sanderson?
However you want.
I mean, I'm not much of I don't have the amount of books under my belt that y'all do. I picked up reading much more recently, but I mean, Sando, I feel like this is going to be sacrilegious to people that are like big Stormlight archive people, but I probably put it top 3 or 5 for me. I mean, it holds a special place in my heart because I started Mistborn before Stormlight, and I feel like that was a series that probably changed reading for me big time. So that series and especially that book was like rocked me, and I was like, oh, I didn't know I could cry when I read a book, and here I am, just like tears coming down my face.
Yeah, that's how I explained it to Andrew. It wasn't just welling up with tears; it was tears going down the face.
Yeah. So, I mean, probably top 3.
Was Mistborn your first Sanderson?
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Because we both started at Stormlight, right, Jesse?
Yeah.
So,
which I was telling Jesse, like, I kind of wish I read Stormlight first, just because. Actually, no, I don't. But I do think it's fascinating how y'all started with Stormlight, because the whole ruin and preservation and like, is this a god? Like, what is this? Like, I think having the Stormlight background is so fascinating because you kind of had a much firmer grasp on those things, and I just had no idea,
Yeah, for sure. I would agree though. We can kind of like rate and review it, but I gave it a 5 out of 5, like as far as like a Goodreads score. But I would probably I've read all of Stormlight, I've read Warbreaker, and I've read now the first era of Mistborn, and I would probably put it at number 3 overall for Sanderson. I would put it behind Oathbringer and Words of Radiance, but I'd put it above
Words of Radiance your 1?
No, Oathbringer's probably 1 for me. Oathbringer did something to me, dude. It rocked me.
Daddy D.
But yeah, Hero of Ages, just FYI, has it's like 200 away from having 400,000 ratings on Goodreads, and it's got a 4.53 overall. So that many ratings having a 4.53 is insane. I
That's
mean,
crazy.
that's a masterpiece of a book as far as Goodreads is concerned. Yeah. So where would you just finished today, Andrew? So I finished like 4 or 5 days ago. So it's freshest for you amongst us. Where do you rate it?
Yeah, I know I told you this, Jesse. Unfortunately, I audiobooked most of this, and this is the first time I've audiobooked anything in Stormlight Archive. I audioed a little bit of the last one too, just because I was trying to keep up with Jesse, who's just been tearing it up out here. Because you finished it.
Finished it pretty quick.
A week ago? No, I mean, when do you think you finished it? A week ago?
Yeah, it was probably about a week ago now, I think. So I read the last 200 pages in a day, so I mean, I crushed a lot of it.
I read the last bit. Sadly, I had to audio the last chapter in the epilogue, which I feel like is low key blasphemous to like read the last like 100 pages and then like stop. I was just coming from work, and so I didn't know like what time we were gonna do this, so I was like just trying to make sure I was done, and I saw like 40 minutes left. Anyway, I could have easily just waited until I got home. It still hit, but this is what I was telling Jesse, is like it just didn't hit the same. Like I knew it should have. That was the worst part about it, is like I was ingesting the content, but it's just not the same. Like I mean, I prefer to read stuff. I know like we have other buddies who like are like audibling all of the Stormlight Archive, which I don't know how they do that. But anyway, I went back and forth, read a decent amount of it. So I mean, I still thought it was by far the best one of the trilogy. And then like especially the ending and how it ends, and the character that's kind of the most well drawn out was my favorite character from the first book, where like, well, I don't want to say anything, spoil anything yet, but anyway, so I really liked how that happened. And if we're talking about just rankings, though, I don't know. I have to give it some time, and I just feel like it's unfair because I didn't read it. Like I didn't physically read it and invest the time like reading it, and so I don't know. I just feel like it's going to be hard for me to put any of the Stormlight, honestly, over it. Maybe Way of Kings, I think, is probably below it. But I don't know. I feel cheated, honestly, because now I can't ever go back and read it and not know what's going to happen. But yeah, I still thought it was amazing. I had doubts. Grace, just to tell you, I wasn't like super hype about reading Mistborn. I don't know why. I thought I just wasn't going to like it, and I've been pleasantly surprised. Like I actually liked it way more than I thought I was going to.
I don't know how you audiobook the last chapter. It's like watching like 2 hours and 50 minutes of a 3-hour movie and just being like, I'll just look up a YouTube review when I get home. It's like I gotta go. Like I got a thing. Yeah. But like you know, audiobooking Sanderson is so different. Like I audiobooked, and Jesse knows, I audiobooked probably the first half of Elantris because I heard that it was just so meh. And so I audiobooked half of it, and I'm like, this is just so hard to keep up with.
Yeah.
And I switched back over to the book and powered through it. But yeah, audiobooking is just, I think
especially if you don't have any context to start with. That's what I was telling Jesse, is like it's different, and that's why like I kind of did it, is because especially like in Sanderson's world, like if you're not reading a name and you're only hearing it, like,
oh my gosh,
you know what I mean?
So
like
different.
There's so much of a mix up to like, okay, what is actually being said? And this isn't a spoiler, but like there's a character named Human, like HU, like the word human, and then the way he pronounced someone's name is Human, which I think it's YOMEN is how it's spelled, but in the audiobook it's human. So like it's like for a second, if you're just audioing it, sometimes you can get the mix up, because I audioed some of the Wheel of Time, and that was an atrocity. And ever since then I've tried not to go back, but it's been better since I've done it to where like I'll start the book reading it, so then like any new characters, like I know what their name looks like, kind of, I'm not just getting hit with words that I've never heard before through Audible, because that's what to me is, because I don't retain it nearly as well as like Jesse does, so I really have to I gotta really dig deep and see it multiple ways, regardless if I'm pronouncing it right, for it to stick for me. Because the audioing a fantasy book is without having any context of seeing anything is brutal to me. So so that's my preface. The only reason I did it is because I read the first one, the full first one, and the second one I read like 75% of it, and then this one I started off reading and then got behind, so then I audioed probably 75% of it. I mean, I audibled too much of this one.
I've got a buddy
that tragedy.
I've got a buddy that audiobooked without reading any Sanderson prior. He audiobooked the first 2 of Mistborn, and like he's like not too high on it, and he's like, yeah, I don't really like it. Like it's not that great. Like
yeah, that's unfair.
You know, and I'm like, oh, dude, I hate like.
Yeah,
I just feel like you would enjoy it so much more if you read the book.
Yeah.
But yeah,
which and it sucks, like Andrew said, because he can't go back and have that same experience because now he knows, you know, what happens.
What's gonna happen. It was still really good though, and I think it's too because I've read I've read Sanderson before, and I've just read good fantasy, so it's like I didn't have the emotional draw of like some things that happened in Stormlight where like I literally got up or cried or whatever, but. Man, it's just I know that I would have. That's what sucks is like listening to it, even though like in a weird way, like I know Jesse, we talked about it because you audibled a little bit of Well of Ascension, I think, right?
And it was the first fantasy book.
It's still good. Like it's still like especially the guy they get to do them is good. Like the way he does it, it's actually really good. But yeah, it's just not the same. I don't know how we have a guy who's Nathan. I can't wait to hear what he thinks about.
Yeah,
because he's 100% audibling.
Well, and Jacob has been 100% audible. Cole has done both, so he's read them as well. But Jacob, he's listened to, I'm pretty sure, every bit of them. So, dude, but they both love it. So, I mean, they're still loving it. But I do wonder if they're getting
I miss so much stuff when I'm reading it. So how are you getting everything when you're just listening to it, and then you're also because that's my problem is I'm doing something else while I'm even if I'm just driving. Or like folding laundry or whatever, but like I'm not fully there. Whereas when you're reading, you have to. It's just more, at least more so, be fully there. And I'm still missing like, oh, this guy's name was important, and then I just can't imagine with listening to it solely. I mean, so Grayson, are you fully caught up in? Have you read Rhythm of War?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I keep looking over here because I'm looking at all my Sanderson books literally in a pile on the floor. And so when I reference them, I'm just looking at all my books. I have.
We read it at the same time.
All of Stormlight. I've read Warbreaker. All of Mistborn. I've read Tress.
Both eras.
Yes. I've read. I've only read book 1 and 2 of Era 2. Okay. Maybe I've read 3. I don't know. I've read Tress. I've read Yumi. And then like a handful of Emperor's Soul, like a lot of the ones that are in Arcanum Unbound.
You read the novellas?
Which ones are the novellas?
It's like Dawn Shard and
Edge Dancer, Dawn Shard,
Dawn Shard, Edge Dancer.
And you said you've already read Sunlit Man?
No, I was gonna ask for it for Christmas, but it's only pre-order, and I'm just not. Yeah. I'll probably just go grab it from a buddy of mine who has it. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So the physical copy's not out yet. That's what it is. Because we have it on. Correct. I have it on Kindle. I didn't realize the physical copy wasn't out yet.
Yeah, it's only for like backers.
Yeah, if you were involved in that secret project thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So which I still hear that it's. I still hear. It's semi-confirmed, I feel like. Well, I feel like I hear mixed things, but it's supposed to be like a Stormlight 4.5-ish situation.
Yeah, I've heard.
What's his face?
I've heard that it's way in the future, though.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not sure if that's accurate. That was before it even came out. But yeah, it's I was about to say Sazed, not Sazed. Sigil, right?
I was about to say Zeth, and I'm like, that's not Zeth. Like... We're all wrong.
It's not Teft. Confirmed it's not Teft. We'll believe it out. It's fine.
That's rough. It's not race either, but anyway. So yeah, other than, I mean, we all gave it a 5 out of 5. What else? I mean, I feel like we kind of are like a broken record on this whenever we review these Sanderson books. You know, I say similar things like the character development, the writing, like the build up to the climactic events that are called the Sanderlanche. So like all of that is there, but it's, I can't remember. I was explaining to one of y'all, maybe I already said it to both of you, but like, because it's got finality to it, it's the last book in a trilogy. There's like just a much different weight to where it had like the same. I had the same level of hype when I was finishing Hero of Ages as I did in certain parts of like Oathbringer, and even Rhythm of War, just because there was all that finality to it. So anything it lacked in the complexity or world building, it compensated with it being like the end. So I told one of y'all, if the end of Stormlight, like Stormlight 10, has the heaviness and the weight that the end of Mistborn did, I do not know that I will survive like the experience, because I can only imagine what that's going to be like after 6 more Stormlight books come out. But
he does it all in one chapter in this book too. Literally the last chapter, or well, I think it's second to last chapter.
I think it's the last 2.
Last 2, yeah.
Yeah, because there's like one character mainly. But yeah, I mean, I was crying in the end, so it was definitely a heavily, probably one of the like most emotional experiences as far as reading any book that I've read at the end of this. And I tore through it, so it was a much different experience than yours, Andrew, because not only was I reading it, but I read like I think 180 pages, like the last 180 in one sitting. So I was so locked in that it just made the emotions like so much higher. Do you feel like you had a similar experience, Grayson? I know we've talked about it a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like with most Sanderson books, once you get to like 300 or 200 pages, you can stop, but it's just like there's so much happening that it's like you're so locked in that it's like I got to clear my schedule. Like I'm just gonna sit here and read this, and like I think I did the same thing where I probably read 200 pages and then I finished it and I was like absolutely wrecked, and then I was like, all right, now I got to go over to my brother's house and act like I didn't just like weep my face off on the couch reading like a book, and I'm like at his house just sitting there thinking about this book. I'm just like, oh my gosh, while everyone is like doing stuff around me.
Literally just, oh my gosh. Yeah, I was shook, man. I feel like I kind of overused that word, but I mean, I sat down like just in my chair in my room where I usually read and just kind of like just really took it in. Just kind of like looked at
it's
nothing.
Tough,
really.
Man. It gets you.
It gets you, man. And like, not to spoil anything, but it's just there's a lot of finality, and it all happens, and there's no looking back, and it's very good, man. It's like like you can apply this to like shows, movies, and anything, books. When there's really high stakes and there ends up being consequences, even at the end of the story, that are like just really intense and emotional. We'll get into it further, obviously, but it just makes it so much better. Like it's like the more it hurts, the better it is. I mean, it's just I don't know what it is, but I love it. So
it makes the journey so satisfying too. It's so well drawn out. Like nothing feels cheap. Nothing feels like underhanded. It's all like, dude, how did he's been planning this since book 1. Like just since book 1, he's been feeding us these little sprinkles that then you're like, oh wait, that mattered this whole time? Like what? It's just crazy.
Yeah. So any other comments? I mean, there's not a lot you can say about a book 3 in a trilogy without spoiling things. So anything that you would add that is not going to spoil, say now or forever hold your peace.
I mean, just another switcheroo. I mean, it's always it's not really a switcheroo in this one. Last book was more of the bait and switch. This one's more just more classic misdirection and like the foreshadowing that you don't even realize is foreshadowing until like an event happens and you're like, oh, of course.
Yeah.
But there's just almost no way to really tell. Like, I mean, some of the things that happen, I feel like in maybe Stormlight and other things, but are more predictable. But I mean, I almost didn't predict like anything in this. There's a couple things like once we get into some spoiler stuff that I'll tell you guys that I predicted. But I mean, most of the stuff, especially the final, like the final stuff, I'm like, yeah, none of this. I would have never guessed any of this.
Yeah.
So,
like. I know that like Jesse, you're kind of like this, and so is Jake, and that like y'all love to like predict or like when you're reading, kind of think about like how is this gonna affect what happens later. And for me, I read so in the moment. Like I don't think past the page that I'm on, and so at the end of like when we get like the little like switcheroo, which I know you don't like that word, but I'm gonna use it. And I'm just like, oh my god, like I'm literally like sitting there in a coffee shop, just like jaw open, and I'm just like, this is wild. Like it was so unpredictable for me, and I think that's just my personality about reading is I don't look ahead, and so when we get these massive events happening, I'm just like I'm blown away. And like they hit hard for me.
Yeah. I don't know anyone who's like reads that isn't. That's why like, and that's why like the Reddit thing. I've told Jesse about this. There was like a Reddit that I read where it's like people bashing on Sanderson in a sense of like people on Reddit will ask for recommendations, and the recommendation will have like nothing to do with like a Sanderson style book. But then people who've read Sanderson will still be like, but like, you know, it's like, oh, I'm looking for a women's morale, like boosting storyline. It's like, well, Bridge 4, when you really think about it, it's like, you know, and they'll just like push Sanderson, but it's all just because it really is so good. Like, even if it's not what you think that you want, I haven't.
It's like books and books, man. There's so many different character arcs and different stories where it is arguable that there's a lot of. Do y'all see that on my screen?
Yeah, that bubble.
What,
how do you do that?
Are we live streaming this summer? Or are we getting like,
we just get a tip?
Hey, chat, what's up, man?
Wait, actually, how did you do that?
I didn't press anything. I have no idea. That was weird. I have no idea what I was saying either, man. So
that was something special. You were saying it's like books within a book.
Oh yeah, you could easily argue that there are a lot of different things that people would want in a book, and you could apply it to Stormlight because there's just different characters experiencing such different things. But yeah, I mean, I would just say if you like good books, I mean, there's no way around it. These are thems. So if you're watching at this point right now and you haven't read it, definitely read it. I would imagine most people watching this probably have. So we're gonna get into spoiling stuff. We're not really gonna have too much of construction here. I just want to kind of rip into it because there's so many things. So I don't forget, I just want to get this out of the way. So the very end of the book, we all know what happens. The part that probably makes everybody cry at least a little bit, at least if they're physically reading it, is Sazed literally becoming God. Like, just becoming God. And we'll get into the details, but since you just mentioned Grayson, Jake and I, and many people who read like to try to predict things, some people don't. So one thing that I didn't predict but accidentally ruined for myself is I was on Coppermind looking at something.
Does this all the time.
I've gotten so many texts of like, dang it, dude, I just ruined something for myself. But I think it's okay. I can get by it. And I'm just like, stop. I'm like, just...
I just can't help myself sometimes, man. I get in a mood and I'm like, bro, what do I care? I'm still going to read it. Dude, but this one really, and it honestly, I still, as I've said many times, I was still very emotional when I read the moment in the end with Sazed. But I clicked on Sazed on Coppermind and then like just immediately saw either aliases or other names and it said God. And I was just like, huh? What do you mean? Sazed God? His alias is God? So I always knew something was going to happen that was godlike, but it still wrecked me to my core. And that was your favorite character, Andrew. So that was,
I'm so glad.
I mean, that had to be satisfying.
It was. So was it him? Like, when was it? For me, the closest I got to crying was Spook reading the letter Sazed wrote him. That to me was the biggest part.
That was tough.
Was it more then, or was it even before then that hit you the most, you think?
For me, it started when I started getting teary-eyed once the Mistfallen realized that they could absolutely use and abuse 18. I just immediately realized, oh, we're in the end game now. Like, it's about to absolutely go down. So I started getting a little just like could feel it, you know, that it was coming.
Yeah.
But then once everything happens with Vin, dude, like when she's fighting all the Inquisitors and then the earring thing happens, I'm crying a little bit. And then Elend and Vin, like, they're gone. I'm crying a bit.
Well, Vin was like savaging while she
dude, it was like not crying out of like an emotion to what exactly was happening. It was just an emotional experience of how like good it was and how like just overcome with like I don't even know how to describe. It was just so good, dude, that it was forcing me to tears. But really, the tears were flowing at the end of Vin and Elend, and then once Sazed grabs Ruin and Harmony, it just becomes or grabs Ruin and preservation becomes Harmony. That's when it really flowed. What would you say, Grayson? When were the tears heaviest, and when did they begin?
I'd say, see, I reread a little bit of it the other day, just trying to like jog my memory of that battle. And the one thing that I remember, I wouldn't say I cried, but definitely started getting me like, oh man, this is going to be like a soul wrecker in like 20 pages, is when Sazed is like, all hope seems lost, and Sazed keeps saying these like tidbits of like Vin will come back, and it's the first time in like
she's not
a lot of the book that we have Sazed, kind of coming back to having a faith, because at one point he kind of like he pieces out on it. He's like over the whole faith thing, and like now I see these speckles of him like finding faith again, and I was like, oh man, like this is gonna kill me in like 20 minutes. The battling I thought was just cool, but I think when I like really just started getting wrecked is when Sazed like grabbed Ruin and Preservation and like became one. And for me, like, and I was talking to Jake about this when I first read it, but Jake saw that scene as very intense and like what's the word I want to use? I don't know, just like chaotic and hectic, like you got gods and all this stuff. And for me, I found it very like sweet. So like when it talks about him like going back and using all the knowledge that he knows of all these cultures and using that to restore the universe to like its balance, that was like, for me, that was sweet. And like I was like, oh, this is like just like the sweetest thing I've ever read. And like I saw it as a very gentle moment rather than, I think Jake saw it as a very like powerful, worlds colliding, like chaotic thing. And so kind of having that chaos mixed with my feeling of like, oh, this is super sweet, and I was just getting just lost it. And then the cherry on top is when it's like, oh, and I made Spook a Mistborn, and I'm like, all right, I'm done. And I just like I'm like, I need to go cry in the shower or like something, because I just can't like I can't do this.
100%. I felt the same, and I thought that I think I would agree with you. I think I felt more like I kind of saw it as a very majestic, like almost like colorful thing where he was like painting, like almost like, not necessarily, but I kind of saw it more as that way, as like an artist and his like using his craft kind of thing. So I definitely felt like it was chaotic around him, but I felt like he had this isolated moment where he ascended and then used his knowledge to, paint said canvas with more of a balanced humanity and balanced world. And that was just, I mean, the payoff of that arc, and again, this was, we'll get to favorite characters, but it being Andrew's, like, the payoff of that arc is, like, unparalleled. Like, for him to go through everything he went through, studying religions, like this scholarly guy, like, starts out trying to give people their faith back that was lost to time because of the Lord Ruler's reign, and then feeling like it was like useless, and then losing somebody he loved, the person he loved the most, then losing his faith, just kind of him getting absolutely broken down. And then in this climactic moment, like using everything he's learned through that arc to be the hero of ages is, I mean, it's the best culmination of any arc like that I can like think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, it is good. I don't know, the moment he has with the first generation Chondras is solid, because they're the ones who kind of reconvince him, because he kind of, once they tell him, because his whole main goal is to figure out what the terrorist religion is, and then he kind of perks up, because he's kind of, I mean, he's a big Debbie Downer this whole book of him doing the whole like just disproving religion. I mean, he's just being anti-Sazed essentially the whole time, which like ends up paying off, because of all the research he does is literally what ends up being the foundation for him being able to be such an efficient like bearer of both powers, but like it was something along the lines of the conversation he has with him about how and it's like you guys kept saying faith too, but because he was saying that I guess none of them are accurate and all these type of things, and that was their main point is, all these religions, or like religion is nothing without faith. So, and then that's kind of when that seed like sparks. But yeah, there were some like more in depth kind of themes there, and I was interested this whole book to kind of see where Sanderson was taking it, because I'm like, there's no way this guy goes down a rabbit hole of like all religions are worthless. You know what I mean? Because that was kind of going on for a while in this last book of just, I don't see any value in them. They're all just kind of lies and falsehoods. And so having that full come around circle of like that there are some truths, which I don't know how I feel completely about it, but the way he makes it and words it in the whole scenario, I'm like, okay, there's some, even if it's not fully true, there are some truths that like help in the moment, I guess. And that's what he uses to do all these things to the world. But yeah, Sazen's a boss, dude. It's always the guys that don't want it that are the best. Because I mean, he's the guy. I mean, he even says in that thing something about how like Vin would have been better. Or something. He's still just so like humble.
Yeah, he's
and,
God,
like, almost
and
non-accepting of it.
Yeah, he's literally God and says Vin was the best of us to ever hold the power of preservation. And you're just like, wow. I mean, she didn't do that much with it, so I don't know. I think you're in the running for the top guy, maybe. But
oh man,
yeah, I would agree. His arc was awesome. He wasn't my favorite from the beginning, but you definitely come to love him regardless. I didn't dislike him, but he just wasn't my favorite. You had said from the first book that he was like you were most interested in his character.
And him, yeah. It's real shame Kelser had to go down book one. That one was tough for me.
That one still hurts.
That was really
still
tough.
hurts.
Still hurts. But dude, the thing that got me the most, and I don't know if you're the same, Grayson, because Jesse and I already talked about it a little bit, but I even texted him when it happened. I'm like, dude, it was the earring. The whole time it was the earring, like that Vin had, to where like she can't use the mist because the earring is the hemorrhagy spike or whatever. That I mean, and the way he set that up too, with telling you so many times about how the mom killed the daughter,
so many times.
It's just so many times. It was just there in front of me the whole time, and like in so many elements of it too. And I was just like, bro, are you kidding me? The earring.
Yeah. I think I looked at that earring as like, and actually, you guys mentioned this in your last podcast of like how Sanderson loves to like, you'll be reading something and he'll just like drop this random sentence and you'll be like, all right, that kind of doesn't fit, but that's got to be important because he just threw that in there. And I felt like that was my mentality about this like earring. And I'm like, this thing keeps coming up. Like,
come up a lot. Like
this is a single like bead of an earring. Like, so like something's up with this thing. But being me of who like just reads in the moment, I constantly would forget about it.
Yeah.
And then like when it came up, I was like, oh, that like I should have seen that. Like I should have saw that coming.
That's how it always feels in those moments for me. Like it was the same that when you texted me today, I like refelt the feeling. I was like, oh my God, dude, the earring. I mean, how many times did Brandon literally say, hey, this is what's going on? And I didn't realize he was saying it. Like so many times. He's like, so here's how hemorrhagy, however you say it.
Yeah, they say hemorrhagy in the audiobook.
So yeah, he explains how hemorrhagy works in 7 different ways. Reminds us of Vin's earring. Then has Yeoman literally explain that it is an allomantic metal. You still are just like, captured, what's up with the earring, man? Like, we get it, bro. She has the earring. Like, never picked up on it. I never did, to be honest.
Dude, the hemorrhagy thing too this one was probably my favorite book about finding out about a power. Like, it's cool in the first book, when you're learning about, like, just, I just lost the word. What's the regular, allomancy?
Allomancy.
But, dude, but the way they do it, which obviously at the very end you realize it's Sazed who's written everything down that you're getting sprinkled in between every chapter, or before every chapter. I mean, it was just cool. Especially, he almost gave us, and I guess it makes sense because this was the last book in the trilogy, but because he was giving away like bangers of information in those things. Because normally it's like really cryptic. Like normally it's super cryptic to where like you can get something from it if you're really paying attention and you've really picked up everything. But I mean, it was obvious. Like, I mean, something would happen,
Yeah.
and then they'd literally be like, "Oh yeah, this is exactly how the power works," and it's like, "Oh, okay." Anyway, it was the most
like,
obvious
whoa.
those have been so far in any Sanderson book I've ever read.
I do want to say a side note, when it comes to those pre-chapter blurbs is when I started book one, I, hadn't read in years, like quite literally like since high school. And probably halfway through the book, and I was talking to a friend of mine, and he's like, "So what do you think about those chapter, blurbs?" And I was like, "Oh, dude, I skipped those." And he's like, "You skipped those?" And I'm like, "Yeah, they don't, they don't matter." And he's like, "You need to go back and read all of those." And so I like went back to chapter one, and I'm like, like reading all of them, and then I was like, "Oh gosh, I need to pay
That's
attention to
hilarious.
these." I'm like,
Yeah.
Oh my
like
God.
reading the finale of book 3 without knowing, and just
Exactly.
like skipping it.
Speaking of those, the first epigraph in the first book, I think it was it you or Jake that pointed this out in our group text?
Yeah, it was
I
one
can't
of
remember if
those.
we talked about this, Andrew, but the first epigraph in the first book is Sazed. Like, and he says things that like give it away to a huge degree that like he is the hero of ages. I can't remember the specific quote.
Is that the one where it starts off like, "Unfortunately, I am the hero of ages"?
Yes, and then he
Or
says
is that
something
book
about
3?
the power of the world being on his arms. Like something along those
Oh,
lines.
yes, because he's talking about the metal mines, or
Yes.
yeah,
Yes, no, that's book 1, chapter 1, dude. That is the first
right
thing
over
you
the
read
head. Have
is
no idea.
Sazed at the end of the book. Like into book 3 talking, basically.
Yeah, sometimes I
Um,
worry I'm not the hero everyone thinks I am.
Those moments drive me nuts because it's like Sanderson is just trolling me.
Oh, he's just
It's
playing
like,
with us.
I'm just gonna give you like the like reveal of the entire series, and you're gonna have no idea who I'm talking about.
Yeah, and as we've talked about, he has stated and like he has stated that in Stormlight 1 and or 2, he has given away what's going to happen in the end of the series. But no one's picked it
What?
up yet. Yeah.
That's disgusting.
It's annoying,
Absolutely
dude.
disgusting.
We already know what's going to happen, but we don't.
That makes me
I'm
sick.
not ready for that. I'm not ready. So yeah, that says it. I mean, so we'll say that's Andrew's favorite character for sure. Who was, you can say the whole series, but then more importantly in this book, who was your favorite character? Like, who'd you get most excited about when you got a POV, Grayson?
Oh gosh. I think my short answer would probably be Vin, just in terms of like excitement of like what I wanted to read. Because when we were talking about Vin, it probably meant I was getting more information about Alamancy, and I was like all about the action sequences and stuff. But
Mhm.
I mean, Say's always held a massive place in my heart. Like, Say's had so many like one-line bangers to like Vin about faith in book 1 and book 2, and I just found Say's to be such a like gentle character, such a wise character, and I always loved the interactions between him and Vin because it kind of felt like a person that had done a lot of life speaking to like a person that has done very little life. And so seeing these like very wise conversations was great. But I don't know, I mean, each book was just so different. I mean, like in book 2, when it's like playing Who's the Conjurer, I was just like, dude, get me to a Conjurer like scene. Like I gotta
Yeah.
know what's happening. But I mean,
That's who my favorite was in this book. Tensoon was definitely my favorite.
dude,
I was gonna
Like
say
the
Sage was
Conjurer
my
is
favorite
just
overall,
excited I
but
got.
just this book, Tensoon was my favorite
Yeah.
POV to read.
Conjures
They were so
grew on me
short.
so much.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd say Vin just because of like the action sequences, but
Yeah.
Say's is like close second for me just because of just.
Grayson,
I
are you
thought-
not an Ellen guy?
I'm really sitting here trying to like remember his scenes and just like what he does, and
That's not
all
a
I
good
can
sign.
think is like, all right, he was like this kid that went to parties. He became kind of a not great but learning king, and then he became a Mistborn, and then he died, and that was kind of it. And so, like,
Oh my
dude,
God.
don't do my
Like,
boy Ellen like that.
I
guys.
literally,
Damn.
I genuinely don't remember much. Like,
Oh no.
I don't. Hey, I just kind of killed people and grew into being a really good king. So
Yeah,
don't
well,
know.
that's Emperor, okay, in Hero of Ages. Emperor, not king. Come on, bud.
Whatever.
Dude, he
Whatever.
definitely wasn't my favorite, but I really, really liked
Yeah.
I was about to say Ellen, but me and Loach were talking. He's kind of like I want to say lesser, but kind of a lesser
very
like
valued.
Adeline. Like he's just a really he turns into like a really good guy that just wants to do the right thing. He's in a much different position than Adeline, so he has to make different choices. But I feel like he's a guy that's just trying to. I mean, he's an idealist all throughout Well of Ascension. Doesn't get elected back to being king, and then he starts kind of learning that idealism, utopia like type of goal, like just isn't realistic, especially in times of desperation with the deepness and all this stuff going on. And then in Hero of Ages, a lot of his POVs, he's having an internal dialogue of like, why can't I protect my people? So that kind of feels like his whole arc in this book is just like completely giving his life over to just winning and protecting the people, to the point where right before he dies and is beheaded by Marsh, he's smiling and he's like, we won. And he knows that Vin, something has happened. I don't know if he could possibly know if she was actually dead. He probably didn't obviously know that she had straight up become preservation, but he knows she's gone because he feels her when she's kind of helping him out. So he's just kind of seeing losses go left and right. The boys start dying when they run out of ATM. He gets stabbed, and then Marsh is sitting there with one of his spikes missing, and he's just grinning. So it just felt like he had a really clean, just for the people arc. And I love Ellen for it. Okay. He was a selfless man and he gave his life for the cause. So you need to remember better, Grayson.
I do remember, as a character, I have nothing against him. I loved his character. I think the journey of him being groomed into this emperor was just. I thought it was a lot of fun. The payoff was much sooner. Like with Adeline, we have to wait several thousand pages to see his growth, and with
Hopefully.
Ellen, I love. We'll see what happens. I loved when he was kind of being trained and kind of getting his butt kicked by, what's her name, Twindle or
Tyndall, yeah,
Tyndall. Yeah, I loved his growth. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's kind of sick that he's more powerful because he ate that McNugget from the Well of Ascension. So he's a more pure, just straight up god tier Allomancer. So he's much more powerful than Vin. He's just not as skilled. So I thought that was cool that he was in some ways kind of OP, but because he was new to it, there was still a lot of, he still had a lot to learn. But I mean, his fight scenes are sick, especially once he gets the ATM. That fight scene was so sick. I was so hyped.
Yeah.
But I knew, man, I don't know about you guys, but I knew once that started happening, I was like, this is it for Ellen, bro. This is his last stand. This is where it happens. I could just feel it coming.
Well,
really?
Oh, I didn't think of that. Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast this week about this book, just trying to again jog my memories, and a lot of people were so, or at least on this podcast, were so annoyed with both Vin and Ellen dying. And then I'd love to know y'all's thoughts, but mine, I felt like we were reaching a boiling point, and I knew that one of them was going to die, and if one died, the other one had to die, because I just couldn't see this book ending well with one of them being alive, because it's just the balance would be too off, and so I liked them dying, not because I wanted them to die, but I thought it was a good way to end it. And I don't know what y'all's thoughts were on that.
What do you think, Andrew?
There was one character I wasn't too mad about dying, but I wanted to see, because in the second book, It's the second book, right? Yeah, second book. It's the whole arc of like Vin letting Ellen die to show him she loves him by not taking the power, which ends up being literally this switcheroo. That's like what? Because then what's his face just gets released. But I was wanting to see a same thing, but reverse, to where like Ellen's like proving that he loves Vin, because every time like throughout this book, like Ellen would want to come with her to do stuff, and she's like, no, you can't come with me. And it was that whole arc of like love is trust, and so you have to just trust, which is one of those weird complexes of like, yeah, I'm gonna go get myself killed, just trust, big trust. If you love me, you'll just let me die. I guess it's kind of how that rationale works as well. But anyway, I thought Vin was gonna die. So I knew she was going to die. For some reason, I thought Ellen was going to live, dude. And there was going to be some weird arc of him letting her die in some way that felt like he was truly showing her he loved her. I don't know. I thought something like that was going to happen. And then Ellen's just going to be left like with the reins and like in some way, I don't know. I didn't know if she was going to fully die. And that's what was like, I was really kind of hoping with, it kind of starts off with Spook hearing like Kelsier, which I knew from the very beginning this isn't Kelsier, but I was like, well, I don't know, like what if there's some way that there's like some spirit world, which by the way, at the very end, I don't know if you guys caught, Sazed said something about them being in a better place now or something. Like basically
they
saying,
were happy where they are.
Yeah, which I'm like, what does that mean? Does that mean they're somewhere where they are still somehow alive? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like they're not.
I do not know.
And was it Scaladriel? Which did they ever once say the name of the planet?
Is it Scandriel? Scadriel? What is it, Grayson?
Scadriel.
Scadriel. Yeah, they never said that in Era 1.
Hold on. No. Let me get my book. Hold on.
I don't think so.
Arcanum Unbound.
Anyway, but
I would say.
Yeah. What do you think about them both time?
Well, I would probably mostly agree. In that, like, I liked them dying because it made it so much. It gave it so much more gravity and made it so much more serious. But I will say, because of our knowledge from reading Stormlight, I thought, and obviously I saw the Sazed spoiler, so I just didn't know I didn't know Harmony was going to happen. I thought there was going to be a ruin and a preservation. So I actually thought
I missed that part, dude. Honestly, I'm glad you said that. I didn't realize that Sazed becomes something different.
Yeah, because he takes ruin and preservation and becomes Harmony. They don't say Harmony in this book, though. To be fair,
okay. I was about to say.
I only know that from they don't actually say Harmony. But,
we know how you know that.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But I will say though, man, Ellen getting his head chopped off, I was like, huh! Like I gasped. I was like, oh my god, he just died like that with just absolute disrespect.
That was disrespectful, honestly.
But I will agree, like as far as like, I thought I liked that they died because it gave it so much gravity. There's also kind of the cheat code of knowing that there's an Era 2, and that insinuated to me that it was going to be a long time later. So again, I was just expecting a lot of finality. So I was cool with them, like especially the way Vin, like she becomes preservation for a minute and defeats Ruin, defeats the mind of Ruin. At is his name. Like he was the vessel of Ruin, and she defeated his mind and basically took Ruin from it so that their bodies popped out and they died or whatever. So she was only preservation for like a matter of minutes, but did, a huge thing so that Sazed could become Harmony and rebuild the world. She didn't know that, obviously, and actually, this is actually an interesting thing too that I want to ask y'all about. So Vin, in an epigraph right after Vin destroys Ruin, the epigraph next, and it's from Sazed, says, once Vin died, everything happened very quickly. And after that, it's the chapter with Sazed taking both of them, fixing the world. And it mentions throughout him having to fix the world that it's like burning. Like the world's about to be completely annihilated because of
well, Vin
like
tries to make some adjustments too.
Yeah. So Vin makes these adjustments, doesn't fix them. So I guess we can never know. Maybe there's other discussions about this, but Vin kind of just decides she's going to destroy everything in that moment, right? That's the interpretation I got. There's no way she could have known that Sazed was going to be able to come out and take both of those and fix everything. So Vin, am I correct in thinking that Vin just said, fuck it, I'm just going to kill everybody? Like, I'm going to destroy Ruin and this whole world's going to burn? Like, was that y'all's interpretation? Because that's kind of how she leaves it,
I don't
right?
remember this moment well enough, sadly, and I literally just listened to it. So
Yeah,
what's the moment where I thought she was just holding him off while Ellen is like
She's essentially
basically
holding
getting all the ATM beads out, and
Yeah.
then that leaves him in a. I guess I don't.
It
remember
leaves him
how.
like more vulnerable. Yes, but
So then, what does she do to him? Does she do something specific to kill
she
him?
basically, the way it explains it is she pushes with all of her like strength on Ruin, and because the ATM's gone, like he's weakened like more than she is now because it's all used up, and that ATM won't come back until the little geodes in the pits start
like
reforming them.
1,000 years or whatever.
So she's only able to do that once the ATM is gone. But before she does that, she messes up the world. Like she has it too close to the sun. Remember, Ellen says it got really hot, and then all of a sudden it got dark. And then Vin keeps kind of saying in her head talk, like, once the sun comes up, like everything's going to start burning. And she can't fix it because Ruin won't let her. He keeps pushing against her every time she tries to fix it. So then the moment that he loses his strength, she doesn't fix it. She just destroys him. So she has to know that in doing this, if no one picks up this power immediately, which again, she couldn't have known was going to happen, the world's going to burn. Like it's all over.
She never seemed like someone that was a big planner, though. So I feel like she was just,
true.
going all out. Because I didn't even think about that. Yeah, because I mean, they are about to like burn. Because I think even Ellen maybe, or no, it is Sazed, I guess, as he's grabbing both of them, can feel like the warmth, and everyone else is like getting savaged, like running into the caves. I guess that does make sense.
So I just didn't know if y'all had caught that, or I mean, I know it's been a while for you, Grayson, but that's kind of the impression that I got. So I was like, oh, Vin's just like, well, we're just gonna have to defeat Ruin and all die so that he dies. Which I don't think she could have done anything else anyway.
Did you think? This is too. It's tough, and you just said it too, Jesse. Like knowing there's an era too, but still, what got me, dude, is Sanderson like making this book, like pitching it as the bad people win or something, or or whatever, the villain wins. And so I still had that in my mind. So I'm like, low key, Ruin's gonna win. But then I knew Ruin couldn't completely win because Ruin winning is him getting to destroy all of the world. Like that's like the deal, right? That he has with preservation. She gets to create as long as he can destroy, like completely. And so I'm like, well, if he destroys completely, then
get their pronouns right, bro.
They're both him. What I say, her for preservation.
Yeah.
My fault. Disgusting.
God. What was I saying? Anyway, but I knew, I guess, because there's an era too. It's like, well, he being Ruin can't completely win. But I don't know. I think the whole time I thought he was gonna win for some reason.
I definitely had the more the Hero of Ages went on, I was like, bro, I don't think they've got this in the bag. I think they all lose here. And it was because of that, because Sanderson said, I had an idea that the idea that was, that birth Mistborn was, what if the bad guy won? But I guess that was him saying that's the world you're coming into, is that the bad ruler won. I mean, obviously that's what
not even a bad ruler. Who's low key the guy who actually saved them. He said he did the best alley oop of all time.
The best one out of all of them.
His plan was wild, dude. Especially at the very end when everything like starts aligning to where him. I mean, it's him and preservation obviously combined, but just where he hid the ATM, to what, like how the conjure work and how like they're all set to basically kill themselves whenever, so they can't be. I mean, there's just so many things that he set up that no one knew about. That in the end end up being huge.
I love when Vin like finds out like, oh man, he's actually been carrying this place for a long time. This is kind of hard. I don't want to do this anymore. Like, damn, we killed a pretty good guy.
Yeah.
We're like, well,
I'm getting hungry.
I guess it's like, meanwhile, Vin's like yanking the sun close and killing everyone. It's just like,
it's like, how does this work, man? The sensitivity is way too high. Rashek does not know what he's doing, guys.
The X and Y axis are way off.
And then she casually
she had no clue.
An entire town and just kills.
That's one of the cool things, though, man. Is Rashek being like, I mean, he wasn't, the Lord Ruler wasn't like, obviously it indicates that Ruin would like kind of tainted his mind, which was probably what led to him killing a bunch of people and like being really ruthless. But at the end of the day, he had like Scadrial's best interests in mind, and the people that lived there, like their survival was kind of his main goal, seemingly.
Who was it that has the statement of "Don't trust anyone who wears metal"? Isn't that like a
the thing that they repeat a couple times
that?
is don't trust anything that's not written in steel. Is that what you're thinking of?
There's that, but then I thought there was, maybe I'm just making it up, that because it was maybe it's later on. I don't know. I mean, it's just the whole theme of essentially if someone has a little bit of metal in them, that Ruin can control, well, not control them, but he can sway them. And so, it goes back and says, well, obviously that's why Zane was crazy, or not crazy, but heard voices. That's obviously why Spook was hearing voices. Same thing.
Well,
with
the one who
Finn.
figures it out is Spook.
But it wasn't said before, and in the other books, was it? Or am I making that up? Where it was something about don't trust.
Book. I do remember something about metal, but I think it was a little different. There was something that ended up, like, you end up discovering whatever it was that was said. I think it was in Well of Ascension. It may have been the beginning of Hero of Ages, but they say something about like either people or like places being surrounded with metal, and you don't understand what that means, but you find out at the end of the book it's because it's like bright and like Ruin can't look at it because it like blinds him. This is what it looks like when he tries to look.
He's like, I gotta put those sunglasses on.
Hey, what are you doing now?
Yeah, look. What did you guys think?
Trying to get destroyed.
What did y'all think of Spook's arc? Did you guys like Spook's arc in this book? I mean, he really takes a huge step up in this book as far as like page count and then just in general, the importance of his character.
Jason?
Spook? I love Spook. I love how Spook starts out as like this,
especially book
like,
one.
Illiterate, kind of just tin eye that wants to be a part of the club, but he's not, and he's just kind of, he's just kind of kicking stones down the street. And then book 3, he's like this blind. Wait, well, at this point, does he go blind, or does he just put it over there just to heighten it?
Yeah,
I forgot.
He puts like spectacles and then a cloth over his eyes because he's burning tin constantly and it's too sensitive, so he has to cover his eyes outside in the daylight.
I forget these things. But then,
that was sick, though.
All I can think about is that fan art that you sent me of like, he's just like, looks like a samurai just walking with his, his thing. And
he looks like, what's the guy, Andrew, from Mortal Kombat?
Mortal Kombat.
He looks so
blind
cool.
dude.
Is it Kenshi? I can't remember if it's Kenshi.
I think it's Kenshi or something like that.
Yeah.
That's what Spook looked like.
Yeah.
I loved his arc, man. I thought it was sick.
It was. His little love story too is kind of cool.
Yeah. And just his whole like
it's so cool. Oh, it's just so cool. I love it.
That is sick.
Oh, dude. It's so sick. What was I saying? The whole thing involving his arc with Kelsier, like the religion that Kelsier left behind, and Spook like kind of like filling in like, the survivor of the flames and becoming that city's like, Kelsier and trying to get the people to rebel. I thought that was such a cool take on just how like either a religion or like a cultural icon or something like that can influence a people so much to where they do these like seemingly insane, ridiculous things. And he was not only going out into the public and doing that stuff, but he was burning tin constantly, which he knew was not good for him. So I thought that was a cool dynamic in his arc, how he's constantly thinking back to the Church of the Survivor and like wanting to be like Kelsier. Kelsier's legend just is felt in all the books, and I love it.
Yeah. I'm glad he bleeds over, because, man, he was so good, which makes it like a little more bearable that he goes so early, because, I mean, he was such a good character and just gone.
Yeah.
Just gone. But the character that I thought was going to have more development, and it's not that he doesn't, but like especially after book 1, like a character like Breeze, like his role in book 1 compared to book 3 is just like, not that he goes down, but it's, I mean, other characters like have more importance. So like, there's only so many characters that can be important, but anyway, it is interesting to kind of watch them almost switch places, and even more so, I guess, because it starts off with literally Spook basically being the guy who just fills Breeze's glass, to where like Breeze is kind of just listening to him take orders, which I know Breeze ends up being like in charge of that area that they go to. But anyway, I was just kind of shocked that it was Spook of all people. I didn't see him being the guy.
No, I definitely didn't either.
Which I think we talked about. It took me a while to realize that the two groups were at two different places. Like, it took me a little too long to realize Yeoman and the Citizen were not the same person, and that those were two different groups.
Yeah, I realized it, but I would get them confused every now and then. I'd be like, wait, how is Ellen talking to this guy right now? I'm like, oh, it's the other one. It's the other leader of the other city that they're trying to, like, find the cash in and all that stuff. So I did get confused early on when they first started kind of going back and forth between those stories. But, yeah, I thought,
because I like
cool,
Yeoman
but I didn't
a lot.
mind him.
I liked Yeoman and Ellen's banter, and then Yeoman and Vin's banter, too. Like, he was one of the more grounded characters, even though it was based off this undying belief that, like, no, the Lord Ruler's not dead. And it's like, dude, when is this guy going to give it up that he's, like, because he would make really good points, and then it's all just still, but, like, he planned for this. Which, in the end, he low-key was right. That,
I mean, yeah.
The Lord Ruler did plan for almost all of it, which I'm just now kind of realizing that he was kind of right.
He was. Dang, there was something else I was going to say about Spook, and I don't remember it. But one character we haven't talked about very much at all is Marsh. And I mean, what a tragedy of an arc. Am I right? I mean, just an absolute tragedy. So... Not only in the books preceding this, well, I mean, it just doesn't show his death. Like, it doesn't detail his death. It ends with, I mean, dude, his ending is just so sad, bro. He, at the beginning of the book, is trying to kill himself, but he can't get enough agency to, like, do enough before Ruin, like, takes back over. And he's just talking about, like, waiting for a perfect moment to have, like, an impact to be able to either defeat Ruin or help Vin or something along those lines. And when he finally does, it's when he removes the earring. And then she starts, like, just whooping ass as she's becoming Preservation. And then once she's done...
Oh, no, what a bad moment for this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no!
I can't see Grayson.
You can't? I can see him.
I'm kind of glad I can't see him.
My uploading percentage is slowly going up.
There it is.
Going up.
There it is.
So where did y'all lose me?
Marsh.
At the beginning of Marsh.
Talking
the beginning?
Marsh.
Nah, what were we talking about, Marsh?
Yeah, I can't remember specifically. It was Marsh. It was early. I'm not gonna lie. It was. You were on one and you were making some good points, and then you went out, and I'm like, it's gonna be tough.
Oh man, I
it's gonna be a tough
love
one.
it. So I'm gonna try again. I'm just gonna go with where we're at right now. But yeah, I mean, Marsh. Why don't you guys talk about Marsh? You don't have to depend on me. I mean, what a tragedy of an ending.
I'm trying to remember where you were at. You were talking about how because I said something about, like, oh, is he dead? You said we don't know. And then I think you were around the part where you're talking about him ripping out the earring for Vin. You were, like, kind of going through.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing that shook me the most by the end of the book was the fact that he wanted to die the whole time. He wanted to find a way to help defeat Ruin or help Vin, whatever. And then he finally does, and she doesn't have enough time to give him the release of death that he wanted. So he helps Vin. She becomes Preservation before she can pull out his last eye spike. And then he gets taken back over by Ruin and beheads Ellen 5 minutes later. That's tragic, dude. There's not a greater tragedy. There's not.
That is tough.
I did think for a while, like, knowing, since Sanderson kept feeding this, like, tidbits of, like, we knew Marsh had, like, a silver bullet, and it's like, all right, when is he going to use it? And so that was something that I kept thinking of like, man, like when is he gonna like use this like Joker card that he has that like Ruin has no idea. And so I kind of like that game of like, is Marsh about to come in here like in the next page and like just like flip the script right here? Or, like, I don't know. I thought that was a lot of fun.
I thought so too.
He's such a cool character too. The Inquisitors are just such a cool like character idea. I mean, so are the Conjure, obviously. Like that's what Sanderson does so well, is create like these original ideas, but that are so connected to the world because they're so important to like how the world works. But yeah, the Inquisitors are just, I don't know, I guess the way I view them too, because especially in the first book, dude, they seem so overpowered. And then you figure out how to kill them, but then they're kind of like not in the second one a ton. And anyway, it's just they're a cool idea for sure. I thought something wild was going to happen when Vin tries to take over his mind.
Yeah.
You know, she tries to hit him with the Koloss like control thing, and you can tell it kind of impacts him a lot. It never really kind of returns to that. I think it just kind of talks about it more in like the pre-chapter stuff where with Sazed just kind of giving you the rules of it. But anyway,
yeah,
Hemorrhagy, that was the big theme of this book.
for sure. Which is, I mean, some of the stuff Sanderson writes is like horrible and graphic. When he was explaining like them, like putting a person on top of what they wanted to make an Inquisitor and driving a spike through both of them in order to create an Inquisitor. I mean, that's just gross.
Well, that period where Marsh is basically on like a spree where he's just going house to house and finding some poor soul, and it's just like, and just like, oh my gosh, you're like, this guy's a savage, yo.
Savage.
Like,
he sees Pompeii happening in real time, and he's just like, that sucks. I'm gonna keep going. Just like, wow, dude, like, what are you up to? Like, what are you doing right now?
He's like, look, dude, Ruins control.
I can't help
my
it,
mind,
bro. I
dude.
love
That's
the
why I'm
darkness.
It's like, stop punching that kid. You don't even have a spike in. He's like, dude, it's just Ruin. I don't know what to tell you, man.
That was so good. So yeah, Marsh, definitely a tragic character. We haven't talked much about Tin Soon, and I would agree with your earlier statement, Andrew. The chapters, like POVs I got most excited for was when I saw that it was a Tin Soon chapter, just because it felt like all of the weight in the world building was around his character. And yeah, they were super short, so it just made you want it even more. And he was just such a good character, man. After getting his whole, like, finding out that Orsur was Tin Soon, and you're like, okay, so, like, it gives you all of that he was really as Orsur is still real because he's still having those conversations. So that was Tin Soon, but then you have the added layer of character finding out that he killed one of his own under Zane's order. And then he goes back, you know, he's ready to just die. Like, this is what we do. I'm just going to die. And then he ends up being the rebel. Nice rebel theme, you know, Sazed is a rebel of the terrorist people. Tin Soon's the Conjure rebel.
A lot of parallels between those two. Yeah.
But yeah, I got most hype for his. I thought he was a really, really good character. And then again, the tragedy and finality of this book, it's not even a POV character. He's just attacking Sazed, and then Sazed, like, while he's getting like attacked, just sees that like he's getting choked by Tin Soon, I think, like in a different form. And he just watches him kill himself, man, pull out his spike. They just do it. They're like, oh, Ruin's here, we gotta go. And they're out. Over. I mean,
I did find the, like, I felt the same way, Jesse, in that as the book progressed, I felt like we had these lines of the story arc that everyone knew a piece of the story, but none of them were connected. And so every Conjure chapter, I felt like these lines were getting closer. And then it got to the point where I vaguely remember, but I think Sazed finally makes it to the Conjure, and like they just flesh it all out, and they just like finally like all of these story arcs and like missed pieces like finally come together, and it's just like finally everyone knows the other person's like information. And I was like, just for my own sanity, I was
and then
like,
the world
thank God, like I'm so sick of like Sazed doing, but but well, that was fun while that lasted.
Did you guys think? I I mean, obviously shook about where the ATM was.
Literally right
Oh
where
my
they got it
gosh.
from.
Yeah,
It
I mean,
being-
hearing the whole story about how like they transported it like in bags of like metal so that like he couldn't see it. Yeah, I mean, and speaking of ATM, I mean, I texted Jesse the other day because I was like rereading it, and I just remember how epic that scene was when when Elon is doing the math and he's like, try this beat, and he's like, all right, and he takes it, and then like his eyes light up and you're just like, oh my god, he has an entire army of guys that are like that can like use this stuff, and you're like, dude, this is about to be an absolute like showdown in like
that
10
part
pages.
was so epic, man. I loved that. But speaking of the Conjure again, the fact that the first generation were all the people that followed Rashek, that were like his packmen and like the people that he trusted,
his boys,
they all became the first generation of Conjure. Man, that's just, dude, the connectivity and the world building of Sanderson is just unmatched, man. I loved that so much. It was so good.
The old Terracemen.
And then it's even connected with the Mistwraiths, right?
Yeah, like they're actually, I forget how they're
like conjure. Are they conjures without?
Yeah.
Spikes?
That's what like
I
so
don't- I
Conjure
can't
or
remember.
Mistwraiths
Yeah,
like
that's
with
what
the
it is.
spikes. That's how they get sentience.
Yeah.
I don't really
Yeah.
recall like where the Mistwraiths come from though. Actually, like I don't remember if they're like children of
I can't remember
of
either.
Conjure or how exactly that. I can't remember, but the main thing was just they get sentience once they get those spikes. And then they had the resolution, man. I did like though how Tensoon tried to argue like, yo, Vin's our mom now. Like we need to just do whatever she says. She killed the Lord Ruler. She's mom. So let's just follow her. And they're like, no, we're not doing that, dude. But yeah, his story was the one I got the most hype for pretty consistently.
I love seeing the and this goes back to book 2 as well, but I love seeing the trust being built between Vin and Tensoon. Because when she learns the whole you killed my Conjure, like there's this period of like unknownness of like, can I trust this person? And he feels the same way of like, can I trust this girl? And so seeing them slowly kind of do acts of service or something to a point where they're like, oh, like this guy's like
right. And it's sad to think that they never saw each other again after book 2. Tensoon never made it to actually talk to Vin, which is kind of a sad thing because he was like doing everything he did like kind of for her, like for everybody, but like she was on the forefront of his mind. He wanted her to have this information, and they never see each other again, man. They just both play their part and then they're gone. It's just a tragedy, dude. It's reminding me of Anakin. Such a tragedy. So what else is there? I feel like we've talked about most of the characters, like the main people. I feel like there's one person I forgot to mention. Oh, well, not a person, but dude, just the Koloss in general. We haven't really talked much about them, but I mean, what a creative, terrifying creature.
Yeah.
Wouldn't want to be one.
I feel like it makes sense that like the ending switch where it wasn't the Inquisitors who had control. I guess the Inquisitors did kind of have control over them, but it's like only through like them being controlled by Ruin. But like Ruin just saying like, thanks for holding these, essentially.
Thanks for holding
these. Back.
Yeah, dude, there's such a tease when you think Vin's gonna have her 1,000 somehow help out, and Ruin's like, yeah, I mean, those are mine too, bro. Dude, it's happening again. What is
that?
On,
and
dude?
why
is that bubble again, man?
I have no idea. I mean, I'm literally not touching the computer when it happens. It's not me, bro. It's Odium. I don't know what's happening.
There's like no finalization with Human really either. Because, Human kind of like becomes she like learns something from him, and then he's just kind of gone. And then they mention it like briefly that he's basically like pillaging like at the old pits or whatever. But other than that, you don't really get much.
And then he becomes no more.
The other like thing we haven't talked about is how Ruin shows up as her brother. Reen.
What a dirty bastard.
Which at first, dude, I was like, no way, dude. Because I always thought from the beginning of book one, Grace and Jesse and I have talked about this, how, like, I was like, man, I feel like Reen dying. Because, at the end of book one, they talk about how Reen, like, never betrayed her, actually. And that was, like, kind of some resolution she got. Because, like, the whole time she thought he just left her, but really he got captured and then never gave up, like, her secret or whatever. But I was like, man, I really wish he would have, like, he would have been just a really good bad guy. Like, I thought, like, that would have been a setup for a great bad guy. So at first it was just such a tease because, like, it ends with a chapter where it's like, it's her brother. And then it just kind of ends, and then you have to wait a couple POVs to get back to her. But anyway, I mean, it was still cool. But I was kind of hoping just a little bit that it was actually him.
Yeah, when that happened, I was like, there's no way. That's not Reen. Like, it just, you'd been exposed to too much information about Ruin for me to believe it, but I still liked that it just kind of shows you, like, Ruin's character, like, that he's going to show up as Reen, and, like, it makes so much sense. Grayson, do you remember after book one, I texted you and Jake, and here was what I thought, Andrew, and I didn't say this to you, obviously, because I knew I had already spoiled a couple of things, and I didn't want to, therefore, spoil it for you if I was right, but I was like, I think Zane is hearing Ruin, and I thought Vin was hearing Preservation as Reen. Because, like I knew it was, like negative thoughts, but I felt like I could perceive them, because I didn't really understand, like, fully, like, Preservation and, like, Preservation's goals, but I was like, well, Reen is saying stuff to her to try to preserve her own life. Like, don't trust anybody, betray them before they betray you. So I thought that you were hearing both different shards, but it was actually just Ruin all along, just talking to them in their head. So yeah, that was kind of a surprise for me to some degree, but yeah, he's a dirty dog for showing up as Reen. That's messed up, dude.
It is messed up.
Dirty dog.
Grayson, how would you compare, since you've read the first, or you've read a couple of the second series? Obviously, this is like you can't spoil anything.
I know,
but
I'm
like
so
just
excited
in
for this
general,
question.
like vibes, is it like similar, different? I mean,
it's so different.
So different.
It's so different. It's I'm trying to think what I can say. Yeah,
it's a handcuff.
It's very different. I mean, yeah, it's just different. It's very, very different. It's not what I expected. I expected it to.
What's the setting? I wouldn't say that's a spoiler. What's the setting of the first book, if you can remember?
I'd say so. Like, I'd say Era 2 is more of a on the edge of Industrial Revolution.
Okay.
So they had
to rebuild. I'm not even really thinking of how it ends, because it ends with, like, basically green grass.
Yeah, where they all come out of, like,
whoa, yeah. With that, like, so Harmony. Yeah. This isn't a spoiler, but, like, Harmony, he restores the world back to the way it is, and so he kind of sets up the future pretty good in terms of, like, we get to book one of Era 1, and it's like ashy. It's nothing grows. It's like a sad place, and in Era 2, like, Harmony definitely, like, does them a solid and, like, provides them with, like, a very sustainable and beautiful.
How would you rate the books?
That's what I'm interested to see, who the bad guy is.
Yeah.
Yeah, the bad guy. It's
obviously don't answer that question.
No.
I'm just interested.
Yeah, it's. I don't know. I mean, it's how would I rate the books, Jesse? I don't know. It's my gut wants to be like they're fine, like
yeah,
but like I don't want the amount of Sanderson that I've read to, like, impact that, because I think if I read that in a vacuum, I think I'd be like, oh, like, these are solid, which they are solid, but it's nowhere near.
That makes sense.
Era 1.
That's everything I've ever heard.
It's not bad at all. Like, if you compare it, it's gonna look bad. But if you just go in with, like, an open mindset of, like, this is just, like, a different story, it's gonna be cool, blah blah blah. Like,
yeah,
it's a solid read. It's a super fast read. I blew through those books much faster than I did era one. So yeah, it's so different, and I need y'all to read it.
Yeah,
so I can
we definitely will soon. And another one
it's
we
just
haven't
killing
read
me
that
right now,
Grayson
so,
has
like-
read, and just to give you an idea of like, just Andrew, so you have an idea of how like Grayson like might see certain things. So he's read Elantris as well, which we have not. And on Goodreads, Grayson gave it a 3 out of 5, and he also reviewed it. And I want you to hear this review, dude.
It's the only book that I've put like
It's so funny. He goes, 4.19 rating on Goodreads. LOL. Give me a break. This book is a necessary evil for the Cosmere. If you love Brando Sando and want to be up to date with the Cosmere, but also hate yourself, this book is for you. It's like having your nose put back into place after breaking it. It's going to suck, but you have to do it. So I'm not looking forward to Elantris at all.
I will say when it comes to Elantris, like going into it, you hear how horrible it is, and I will say it's like a theological, political, just like talk the whole time. And so like halfway through, like if you can get through like 60% of it, it really picks up and it's enjoyable, but it reads very different than a normal Sando book because it's his first one. Most people say, which I'm sure y'all have seen, that like if that's the first one that you read, it's very like it's pleasant, you know, like there's no expectation. But like if you get off reading Stormlight and then you go to that, I mean, it's like getting out of a Ferrari and hopping in a Prius. It's like oh man, this just doesn't have the zip and the sexiness that like, you know, does.
I wonder if it's worse than Edge Dancer.
Dude, this is a great. This will be a great talking point for you guys. Grayson likes Lift. Andrew does not like Lift.
Jake hates Lift. I love Lift. I thought the Lift Zeth Nightblood trio
love that.
was God's gift to the earth.
That was a lot different though. That was at the very end. I still just
dude.
Everything up before that. I mean, that was a cool moment. I will like, you know. But that was also the least amount of that was the least lift ever was in the series, if that makes sense. In those moments, because it's like, and that's how you knew it was bad. Like that's how you knew that moment in Oathbringer was bad, because even Lift wasn't saying some dumb ish. Like even she kind of gets serious because she's like, oh no, and that like in a way, I like how Sanderson uses that to set the scene, you know, to make it even more like to show how much more serious it was. But yeah, she has grown on me slightly, but she could die, and I would honestly be happy. I will say I think my new least. I have another least favorite character, and it's
starts with an S and rhymes with Shalyn.
Oh well, she sucks, but she's the definition of a necessary evil.
No, you're talking about Liren.
But no, what's Kaladin's dad? Liren, dude, he could be deleted.
Oh, dude.
He could be
Liren
deleted
is
from
a
the series,
total buzzkill.
I would have it would impact my reading none. Whereas Shalyn, you know, I mean, she's so integral to the story. Whereas Liren, I mean, I feel like is so irrelevant. Like he's so unchanging with his mindset. He's just the worst, dude. He's just a bad character. Like I think he's a badly written character. Like I honestly, like it's not like a Moash where you hate him. Like you hate him, but you also, I'm like, he could have done better. Like it's the one of the few characters I'm like, I think Brandon Sanderson could have done better.
I always call them Mosh.
Mosh?
Well, I think what I love about I always call them Mosh. But I think what I liked about Lift is that she was like this comedic relief, and you know, is she a silly character that, you know, is kind of whatever? Like, yeah, but I just thought it was hilarious seeing Lift being paired with these incredibly serious characters like Dalinar, where Dalinar is like in a dream and he's just like, who the hell is that? And she's like, you got any food in here? And he's like, how did you get here? He's like, who are you? And then just like pairing her with Zeth, and Zeth being like this psychotic murderer with a sword that's even worse than him, and she's just like, oh, you know, let's go have some
See,
fun.
you're talking.
And,
you're talking about the parts that Andrew
good.
hated the most.
See, the moment she has with Odium, is, I think, my least favorite part in all of Stormlight. Where she says something like cheesy offhand, and when this is like one of your first introductions to the Thanos of, you know what I mean? This guy is, it's like, what? And I understand theoretically why it has to happen, because she is so, like, you know, it's the underlying theme of, like, she's important. It's like the Rhiannon aspect where it's like you don't fully know everything, which I think we know more obviously about Lift than Rhiannon, but you know that there's just some big implications down the road with like the power she's been given by cultivation.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I still just
there are two things I wanted to mention that. So once I got into Stormlight, whenever I saw a planet or like a people or a culture that was mentioned that I had never heard of, every time I would immediately go back to the very end of Hero of Ages and see if that people group or whatever correlated with one that Sazed used to like restore. And I've yet to find anything that correlates, and it's infuriating. So cool. But the second thing, which I mean, this is Jake told me this, and maybe he's told you, Jesse. But do you remember in Way of Kings it's probably one of the first interludes where three strangers go to like looking for like a guy named Wit, and they like don't, and like they visit like some guy that like I think he's like, you know, lives in like that huge pool of water or whatever. But there's three guys that are not named, or if they use names, they're like fake names. But one of them is Demo from Mistborn.
That's right. You're talking about. I think you're talking about Ryan's or Rizen's first interlude. Risen, right?
No.
Talking about like Great Lakes, or not Great Lakes. Whatever that place is called, where like there's the water everywhere.
She goes to the Pure Lakes. Isn't that where she gets hurt? Or
inside buildings.
Am I jumping forward? Okay,
it's before that. It's way before that.
I don't know, but yeah, three guys go, and one of them is Demo.
So he's a world hopper.
Really? So he's a world hopper.
So one's Demo, and I won't say who. Like I won't name names, but a second one is from Elantris, and then a third one is from White Sands.
Dude, if I end up having to read a freaking comic book in a Cosmere, I'm gonna be pissed.
Dude,
I'm not gonna be happy.
I mean, do you know it? I've told you about their magic system, right?
I don't think so. From White Sand?
From White Sands?
Yeah, it's basically like and I haven't read White Sands. I've read the chunk that they give you in Arcanum, and it's like real, you know, it's short, but their magic is like they use these sands that are like white, and when they're white, it means they're like highly investiture, whatever. And when they use them, then they turn black. And so that's I thought about that at the end of Rhythm of War when Navani's doing all those.
That's brought up though, isn't it? That is.
Well, she's given that sand or like that whatever, and like it turns black, but they don't talk about it. But I was like, I'm pretty sure that's what happens in White Sand with all their sand. But yeah, we're giving the viewers a lot more than they asked for.
No, I mean, there's other cool stuff like that. I think in Oathbringer,
books out here.
or maybe it's Rhythm of War. I think it's Oathbringer when they have that metal thing and they find Wit in it, and he's like partitioned off, like there's metal surrounding like whatever enclosure he's in. I think it's Shallan that sees it, and she doesn't understand why. And I still don't understand why. I don't know why you need that in this world, but he was saying something about how it like shields out, like, and it's like a Mistborn concept. Like he's using metal to like keep something out. And I guess maybe it's so Odium can't see him. I'm not sure. Do you remember?
Well, yeah. Well, is it the same metal that, oh gosh, what's her name? Azure uses that gives them like, the metal that she gives them is aluminum.
Oh, is it? When does she gives that to Adeline and Shallan?
Because aluminum. Yeah, because it's because it's what they use to like basically hide themselves. They were using it to hide their powers from the
Ghost
I'm already
Bloods
forgetting the names of the bad guys
or
in
Odium.
No, not the Ghost Bloods. From the
Fused.
flying things.
The Unmaken? Oh, Unmaken.
Yeah.
I read the Fused.
Yeah, the Fused. But they call it something else. But like, if you look at like what aluminum does, it removes your ability to do stuff, or like it sucks you dry of your like powers.
It sucks you dry.
I'm pretty sure it's aluminum.
Y'all got any aluminum on hand?
I
knew.
I just.
Dang, boy, you kind of built
I knew it.
aluminum, Jesse.
Bro, are you aluminum?
No. Oh my gosh. Oh, y'all are sick.
Absolutely disgusting.
Dude, I wish I would read Tress, because there's a Conjure in Tress.
We're definitely, I mean, it's on the list. We're going to read the secret projects. Other than that British survival guide, whatever the bull crap was, I'm not reading that one. But the ones that are Cosmere, and then we have to go back and read Era 2. Then we got the Emperor's Soul, Elantris, because I know I have talked to each of you separately, but we can all three talk about it. We now know that we are going to get another Mistborn era, Elantris 2 and 3, and something else, maybe the White Sands, and maybe another work before we're getting Stormlight 6. So once we get Stormlight 5 next year, I'm pretty sure it's going to be like a generation before we get Stormlight 6 because of all this other bull crap he wants to write. Dude, if he really seriously writes another graphic novel before he does Stormlight 6, I'm going to have to riot, dude. I'm going to have to riot his emotions or something. Or maybe I can aluminum him.
I don't know. But we're a bunch of freaking nerds. Oh my god.
Get rioted,
Dude,
bro.
am I rioting you right
Losers.
now, Jason?
Oh, man. I want him. I want Nightblood. You know, I want the follow up to
man.
Warbreaker. When is that happening?
Warbreaker has a,
Also, I just want to know. I mean, I was texting Jesse about this. Like, in Arcanum Unbound, it talks about all the like universes in the Cosmere, and Warbreaker's system is not in it, and it
Really?
drives me up a wall because I want to know where it's at. I want to know how the hell like people from there get to like Roshar. Like, it's just so frustrating.
Dude, I keep seeing memes, dude, on Reddit, and I need to stop getting off this. And it's memes about like, it's like the freaking, the road in Fast and Furious, where like there's a way to go, and then the car's like drifting and not going the one way.
It like splits.
Yeah, and so one way is like world hopping using Shadesmar or something like that. It's like the straight path, and then the like part where it's like yeeting and like not going the way it should is like using spaceships or something like that. And I'm like, what? Is that gonna happen?
Well, I know that. I think Wit has a spaceship. I don't know what I feel like some of his like his.
Speaking of Wit,
oh yeah.
I mean, he's not in Mistborn Era 1, bro. He's in like 2 parts.
He's not in.
It's so disappointing, dude. I for some reason thought Wit was like a main character.
Is he in Mistborn Era 2? Can we confirm or deny that, Grayson?
Huh?
Is Hoyd/Wit in Mistborn Era 2?
So far,
like actually in it.
He so far plays like the guy that is like on a carriage.
Dude,
that like does the horses.
Does he actually get page time, or is it like
it's literally like the character's like, all right, Hoyda, like let's hop in the carriage and go. And I'm like,
they like mention him for
I'm like, yo, I'm like, like this guy's like probably a god. I'm like, how are we just not gonna talk about him? Yeah,
Hoyd has to have a shard, dude.
Because Odium says that he turned it down.
He's collecting all the magic.
He lost some breath, though.
He's a Mistborn. He's a Mistborn.
How do we know he's a Mistborn?
Because he was. It's in one of the short stories in this that I need to read. But like, I knew it before.
Yeah.
I knew it before that because there's a scene at a dinner in like Way of Kings or maybe Words of Radiance where it's like I think it's Shallon's POV, and she's like, "Yeah, Hoyd like pop something and just kind of chug something,"
Popping that vial.
and like even I think Hoyd mentions something about like taking a vial and like drinking some metal or something, and I'm like, all right, well, he's clearly like has the ability to do this. So
what that really reminds me, I had a thought when Vin is fighting the Inquisitors, that like sick battle she has, and she keeps just like and I'm like, they need camelbacks. Like the evolution in this needs to just be a camelback with a hose in their mouth so they can just and then just still keep doing stuff, because they would like keep running out, and it's like, all right, now I gotta like Euro step away.
Yeah.
So I can
She's like mid getting
like
choked
neck
by
a
an
bottle,
Inquisitor, and
like,
she's supposed to drink a vial.
Yeah. Because the Duralinum, whatever it's called, really like, Duralumin, yeah, just be depleting instead of
Be
just
depleting. Dramamine. I used to have to take that all the time.
But can you imagine
on road trips?
Just a waterback or
I don't get
camelback
too
or
car sick,
whatever.
man. But
Oh god.
You sound weak.
Dude, not only do you not get Hoyd very much, you get him once in Well of Ascension, and then Vin mentions him and then doesn't go to see him. She's like, "Oh yeah, he told me to go see this other guy named Hoyd." She's like, "But I'm not going to do that," and so she doesn't, and it's just such a tease, bro. But to get back really quickly to Warbreaker, bro, I have a strong feeling that Susabrin is going to come out of nowhere and be like so OP. I don't know why, dude.
The fact that that's actually how you say his name is insane.
Dude, you keep talking about it. You love that guy. Also, I'm just bewildered by
I
how
used to say
some of
Susbron.
the names, and I think
I used to say Susbron
to myself.
But it's Susabron in the Audible.
I
only know that because one of my friends listened to Warbreaker, and when we were on the phone talking about the book, he was like, "Yeah, Susabron," and I was just like, "Who?" He was like,
"Who the hell is?"
That's how they do it on the Audible. So I was like, "I mean, that sounds better than Susbron." So I mean,
yeah, we were Susbron in for days.
Oh, Braun of the Sus. I mean,
that's awesome.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know why. I just feel like. And maybe it'll just be in the Nightblood, like in the next book or something. But I just feel like he has all those breaths that Vasher left him with. So I just feel like he's got to have extreme power. But I don't know. I could be wrong.
Who are we talking about right now? Nightblood?
Susbron.
Susibron.
Oh, gosh. I can't keep up. I'm literally the worst at, like, remembering, like, it's bad. It's so bad.
Yeah, dude. Loach will finish a book and that day be like, wait, what happened? That day.
I'm like, so what happened to Vin?
He'll be like, end of Rhythm of War, be like, dude, which one's Kaladin? Did he die? And I was like, bro, get
out of here. So my buddy Jim, he had read Mistborn before me, and I read it, and I was like, I finished it, and I texted him, and I was like, dude, I can't believe Sazed was the hero of ages, and he was like, oh yeah, I totally forgot about that, and I was like, how do you forget like the biggest plot point of 3 like massive like I'm like if you forgot something smaller, like I get it, but like we've spent
like, dude, I totally forgot Shardblades were sprint. That's crazy.
Oh man,
I'm like, how do you forget that, buddy?
Man, good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, we probably should end it and then we can keep talking. But
so yeah, that's
for the sake of having Grayson on.
Yeah, that's Hero of Ages. Thanks for watching. If you're still here, you're probably not, but thank you, Vin Diesel, for joining us, or Bruce Willis, whichever one you were. Appreciate the time.
I don't got friends, I got family.
And that's all you need.